So hi, good morning. Right now I'm standing in front of your college. So we'll quickly go into what we'll be to discuss today. So as we know that last week we have already discussed about some of the properties of fluid. So this week we'll be continuing with that, but we are getting into a bit of advanced into the topics of fluid mechanics. So we'll start developing some of the concepts that we have already learned. So we'll quickly start. So today what we are learning is we will be learning what all classifications we have for fluid mechanics. Then later on we will be learning about the Pascal's law, and we will be also learning about the equation of hydrostatics. So we'll see one by one. So whenever we are learning about fluids, what we need to understand is fluid mechanics is the study of fluids. And this fluids can be either at in rest or in motion. So when the fluid is at rest, the study of fluid mechanics is called as fluid statics. And we all know that for something to be in motion, you have to apply a force. And when you apply a force, what happens? It will be starting to move. So it is in motion. And we are not at all considering the force, then that is called as fluid kinematics. And we are considering the force which is acting on the fluid, it is called as fluid dynamics. So this is how it varies. So it can be either fluid kinematics, fluid dynamics, or fluid statics. So always remember this is a classification of fluid mechanics. And remember one thing, that in fluid kinematics the force is considered. Force is not at all considered. In case of fluid dynamics, the force is considered. So this thing you have to keep in mind. To start with, we'll be starting with fluid statics. So we'll be dealing with fluids at rest. So as the name suggests, it is fluid at rest. That's why it's called as fluid statics. So just assume that you have a container. The container is filled with some liquid. So it is filled with some liquid. So you have air here and you have liquid here. So there's a surface there which is in contact with air. This surface, I'll show the surface. So this is the surface, the liquid surface. So to represent that as a surface, what we do is we show a symbol. That symbol is like this, a triangle with a small shading downwards. So it means that it is a free interface or a free surface. That means if you draw a line like this, a triangle, and you draw a small shading like this, it means that is a free liquid surface. You have contact with the air. This is air and this is liquid. This is what it means by. So for that, representing that, we are using this symbol. So always remember that the liquids will be having some liquid molecules like this. This liquid molecules will be always having a tendency to freely flow. So it will be what happens, having a tendency to flow out or to spread. So what happens, it will be exerting a pressure on the walls of the container. The walls of the container as this. So it will be exerting a pressure on this walls of this container, and this pressure exerted by the fluid particles on the container is called as the fluid pressure. So that is called as fluid pressure. So it is the pressure exerted by the fluid particles on the container in which it is being kept. It can be because of a liquid or it can be because of a gas. If you take a closed container, if you take just a closed container, just assume that you have a closed container like this, and you have gas inside this. The gas particles will be having a tendency to go out, but because it is closed, it cannot go out. So it will be exerting a pressure on the walls of the container. So that will be exerting a pressure. That is also called as fluid pressure. So now we go into the very important law called as Pascal's law. Just assume a container has been shown in the figure. it is having some liquid, and you can see the free water surface. This is the free water surface, and it is in contact with the air. So you can see it. Now I'm just taking a small point here, considering a small point here, point A. Now what happens is there will be lot of other particles also around it. So all these particles will be exerting some amount of pressure on this point A also. So if I show it by different direction, so this will be exerting a pressure like this will be exerting a pressure, and from all different directions you will be getting some pressure or the other pressure. And by Pascal's law, what Pascal states is that the pressure at any point is same from all directions. So I'll write it. So this is the statement for your Pascal's law. The intensity of pressure at any point in a static fluid is same in all directions. So if I say why this is important, so you can see the statement, you can check the statement. It has to be a static fluid. So if you take a small point in a static fluid like this, so this is a static fluid and there's a small point, and the pressure acting from all the directions, it's the same. The value is same. So if I am writing this to be P1, this pressure to be P2, this pressure to be P3, this pressure to be P4, P5 and P6. So this is all acting at a single point. No other point is there, only single point is there. Then the only change is that the directions are different. But what can I say is, by mathematical statement I can say that P1 is equal to P2 is equal to P3 is equal to etc. is equal to P6. So that's what I can say. This is the Pascal's law. So we can prove it by derivation, and I'll send you a video how to derive this Pascal's law in a short time. So I'm taking the same figure, but here I'm considering 2 points. So from earlier Pascal's law definition, what I can say is that the pressure acting at point A from all directions is same. So for example, whatever pressure is coming from whatever directions, at a single point the pressure is same. Similarly here also the pressure acting at point B from all directions are same. So this thing I can understand, no issues. Now just say that I have the pressure acting at the point A, let it be PA, pressure acting at point A, and pressure acting at point B is PB. Sorry for the interruption. So as we are talking about, we have considered 2 points, A and B. Now I'm assuming that the pressure acting at point A is PA, the pressure acting at point B is PB. Just out of your logical thinking, which will be having higher value, P at A or P at B, which will be higher? So for those who have said that PB is greater, I can say that that is correct, because PB you have towards this point. So at PA what happens, only this much amount of water is contributing to pressure, but in case of PB this much amount of water is contributing to the pressure. So obviously the pressure at point B will be greater than pressure at point A. Now how to calculate the pressure at point A or pressure at B? How to calculate? How will you calculate the pressure at point A or B? So that's the real question. To answer that question, we have to learn something called as the equation of hydrostatic pressure. So we'll see that. So according to the equation of hydrostatic pressure, I'm considering any point, and the pressure at that point is equal to gamma times the H. H means the height of liquid above that point. So if I take a point A, the point A is having a height of liquid H. So what is the height of liquid above it? That is small h. Then to calculate the pressure acting at the point A, that is given by the equation, P is equal to gamma into H. Gamma, as you know, it is nothing but the weight density. We have already seen how to calculate the weight density. And H is the height of liquid or fluid above the point considered. So that is called as the or this equation is called as the equation of hydrostatic pressure. In fact, we have to derive this equation also. So for some exams, even this derivation has also been asked. So we'll learn the derivation also in a short while. So in this point or in this figure, I need to find the pressure at the point A. So just see how many fluids are there above the point A. How many fluids are? Fluids can be liquid or gas. So I have to check the number of fluids above that. So point A, above that point you have liquid here. I don't know what liquid is that. And then do you have any other fluid there? And above that liquid you have air. So you have got two fluids above it. Now, so how to calculate the pressure at the point A? We know that the pressure at the point A is given by gamma of the liquid into height of the liquid, plus what will be having? You will be having a pressure that will be given by the air. So what do you mean by the pressure exerted by air? Air will be exerting some pressure, and that is called as the atmospheric pressure. I am writing it as PATM. PATM means nothing, atmospheric pressure. It's called as atmospheric pressure. So this is the most general way in which you can express pressure at any point. So pressure at any point is given by gamma times H plus atmospheric pressure. But in most cases what we do is we assume that the atmospheric pressure, we are not at all considering the atmospheric pressure. So we will be considering that atmospheric pressure to be equal to 0. I repeat, we will be assuming that it to be 0 for our convenience. See, why we are not considering the atmospheric pressure. For example, I'll tell you. So I'll tell you why we are not at all considering the atmospheric pressure. See, in fact, even now also we do have atmospheric pressure above our head. But do we feel any kind of pressure on top of our head? No. Why? Because our body is being designed to accommodate that pressure. So for that reason, what happens is we cannot feel any pressure even though there is some kind of pressure above our head. So we are assuming that pressure to be 0. We're just assuming, we are neglecting actually it's not at all 0. We do have a considerable amount of pressure which is acting on top of our head, or actually which is acting in and around us, but we are not at all feeling it. So since we are not feeling it, we are just making that to be 0. So as discussed earlier, P at A can be written as the equation gamma H plus P atmospheric pressure, but for practical purpose we will be assuming P atmospheric pressure is equal to 0. And when we are assuming the atmospheric pressure is 0, such measured pressure is called as the gauge pressure. So sometimes in question you will be asked to find the gauge pressure. So whenever you are asked to find the gauge pressure, you have to keep in mind that during gauge pressure what we are doing is we are assuming the atmospheric pressure to be 0. There is one more kind of pressure which is called as the absolute pressure. So there's one more kind of pressure which is called as the absolute pressure. In case of absolute pressure, the atmospheric pressure is not at all taken to be 0. The atmospheric pressure is having some value, and if you are considering that, then that is called as the absolute pressure. Now the value for atmospheric pressure is given by 101.3 kilonewton per meter square. So that's the value for atmospheric pressure, 101.3 kilonewton per meter square. So we need to learn about the pressure head. So from the equation of pressure, we know that pressure is equal to gamma into H plus atmospheric pressure, but when we are assuming it to be gauge pressure, this is the equation, and pressure head is nothing, which is given by P by gamma. It means the height of liquid that is required to cause a particular pressure. So I'll explain it. Just assume that you have a container like this and it is filled with water, and the pressure acting at this point is pressure is equal to 20 kilonewton per meter square. Then what is the height of liquid in this container? This is the question. So that height is called as the pressure head. To cause a pressure of this much kilonewton per meter square, how much H is required? So that is the question. So to find the value, H is equal to P by gamma. The pressure we know it is 20 kilonewton. Kilonewton means 10 to the power 3 Newton per meter square, divided by the weight density for water. For water it is 9810 Newton per meter cube. So you'll get the answer to be about 2.038. So if you check this, Newton per meter square, Newton get cancelled, this goes up meter. Meters of which liquid? You have to always specify what liquid. Here it is water, of water, isn't it? So this is the answer. So that's how you find the answer. So that is how you get the answer. That is 2.038 meters of water. Similarly, with the same question, if I say another liquid, for example, you have a oil of specific gravity 0.8. Now for the same pressure is equal to 20 kilonewton per meter square. But the only difference is that you are using an oil of specific gravity 0.8. You need to find the pressure head. Here also the equation is same. That is P is equal to gamma by H is equal to P by gamma. Pressure is nothing but 20 into 10 raised to 3 kilonewton per meter square. Not kilonewton, it is Newton per meter square, divided by gamma. Earlier what we have used is water. So for water it is gamma is equal to 9810. Here the specific gravity is given to be 0.8. So how to calculate the gamma of oil? The gamma of oil can be written as specific gravity into gamma of water. So to find the gamma of oil, it is nothing but gamma of water multiplied by specific gravity. Specific gravity is 0.8 multiplied by 9810. Calculate this, you will be getting the value for H. So when you solve it, what you need to find is H is equal to P by gamma, and pressure is 20 into 10 raised to 3 Newton per meter square, and gamma for the oil is nothing but specific gravity into gamma of water, that is 0.8 into 9810. So when you solve this, you will be getting the value as 2.5 something meters of what? Which liquid you are using here? You are using oil. So this is how you find the pressure head. One more example, if you are using mercury, if you are using mercury. So remember that for mercury the specific gravity is 13.6. So please remember this is very important. For most of your university exams, the value for specific gravity of mercury will not be given. So please remember this is very, very important, so that you have to keep in mind. So for the same pressure, 20 into 10 raised to 3 kilonewton per meter square, what is the pressure head in meters of mercury? How to calculate it? Can you please calculate? Can you please check it? What's the answer that you are going to get? Please do it. So here this is the equation. H is equal to P by gamma. Pressure is 20 into 10 raised to 3 Newton per meter square, and gamma. Gamma is for mercury. For mercury the gamma is nothing but S into gamma of water. So S is 13.6 into 9810. So this is how you calculate. Then you will be getting the value. So this is how much you get. You will be getting 0.15 meters of what? Which liquid you are using? You will be using mercury. So that's how you find it. So if you try to check what has happened, the pressure was equal to 20 kilonewton per meter square. For creating that pressure, the height of water required was about I don't exactly remember, 2.08 or something, 0.03 meters of water. For oil, you required about 2.5 or 2.8 meters of oil, and for mercury, you only required 0.15 meter. So just remember, just for the same pressure but different height. So from this, what inference can you make? What can you make? Which is the densest liquid out of these three? Even 0.15 meters of mercury is able to make a pressure of this much. But we need about 2.8 meters of oil to make this much pressure, and we require 2.03 meters of water to create a pressure of this much. That means if you're taking a container, the height inside this container has to be 0.15 meter, so that the pressure acting at this point is 20 kilonewton per meter square. Similarly, the height of this liquid has to be 2.8 meters of oil, so that the pressure at the bottommost point is 20 kilonewton per meter square. So this is the meaning of the pressure head.